In the top left, it is Maru. In the bottom right, it is Nightmare. And this is the round of 16, Group A of the GSL. No, I am not Tasteless, nor am I Artosis or State. I am ZombieGrub. And I'm casting GSL replays. Can you believe it? Probably not going to last for a very long time. As soon as they realize how many people are just going to pay attention to their favorite content creator casting their replays the hours after they release them, they might be a little more hesitant. But while they are releasing them so quickly, we're going to be casting them as quickly as we can. Especially because I'm moving soon. But we do have a potentially very uneven match ahead of us. Maru is absolutely the favorite. In fact, he's the favorite to win GSL. And that would not be a shocking statement last year, the year before, or the year before that. But probably even more so now, since a lot of the guys who aren't destined to literally win GSL are not actually going to be putting maybe all of their practice towards it. You know, I'm not going to like go ahead and put words in their mouth because I don't actually know. But the fact is, it's no longer one of the heaviest prize pools for the Koreans, nor is it as prestigious as it once was. So, even if Maru thinks he'll win the damn thing, the prize pool is, whew, it is low. It is low. So that's just unfortunately where we're at right now. But at the same time, I guess currently, as of right now, I think for this year, we're still going to have a lot of the remnants. We're still going to have a lot of people who just want to say, you know, I do want to win a GSL. I do think it's still a lot of prestige. I do think, obviously, the player quality in the round of 16 is still very high. And if I beat all these guys, that's amazing. I think that's fair. But next year, the year afterwards, then maybe that's where the question marks are. But we know Nightmare has always been more of a round of 16, if that type of player, having occasionally couple good runs, right? Like Atlanta has run through the lower bracket, was really cool. And he's been around for a long time and brought out some cool builds, such as the DT jump on tanks 5 or 6 years ago. But he's up against the #1 player in the world. And the #1 player in the world is currently bopping Nightmare with a single proxied barracks. I want to be very clear, this is usually not such a big deal. But unfortunately for Nightmare, his pylon is in range, very clearly in range of the bunker, which means it could be target fired, so if you built a shield battery back here, it wouldn't have done anything. The pylon would have been depowered, and the shield battery itself probably would have been gunned down. If additional pylon came up here, that might have solved the problem, but then that's another 100 minerals, and maybe he keeps on sniping your probe, because he has already sniped 3 of them. So the shield battery on the high ground is really awkward. You can see how far the stalkers have to reach to try and kill the SCV away from the shield battery. Overcharging it can't happen. Won't be helpful anyways. And Nightmare is already in the midst of a nightmare, because you gotta make that pun. You gotta. It's already a disaster. It's a disaster. I gotta, you know, break my voice as much as possible. It's a disaster. 3 Marines and a Reaper are about to kill 1 Stalker. And they probably could get the other one. They really tried for it, I believe. I believe in Maru's micro. But he has stopped producing from the barracks. He's lifted it back home. Maru just continuing on his merry way back at home. Command center's on the way in the low grounds. Tank is on the way. If the bunker lives and the tank can come across the map, the Cyclone's already here after all. He could probably just end this game. Nightmare, realizing how desperate he is basically admitting he'll be thrown down to a 1-base all-in scenario, which is fair. There's no chance to save his Nexus, so he's just like, okay, time to 1-base it. That's the better option than just shrugging your shoulders and leaving, which would be an understandable option. If Nightmare just kind of shook his head and left this game, I would not blame him. But he's going to give it the old college try. He's going to go across the map and try and kill Maru with 3 gateways in a robo. He's actually getting a Nexus. I think that's... I mean, you might as well just all in. You might as well pull the probes, man. Really, I think we should see a 1-base probe pull in this match. I really do. Maru is going to respect this, which I think is very fair, but it's actually not all that committed. Even if it was, there's 1 more full warp in of Stalkers, and then 8 Stalkers against 2 tanks, a Cyclone, a Viking landed. It's actually not going to be enough. In this case, actually, the Viking Just going to shoot away the Warp Prism. That makes sense. So a little bit of siege hopping just to make sure everything's fine. Okay, got to give respect to those force fields. They did grab the Cyclone, but that's not near enough for Nightmare to make up for the travesty that was the early game. He is still down 7 workers, still down a command center, a town hall, because that's the only option that covers all 3. And still has no additional technology. The Robo's not really going to apparently be his choice anyway. So the Robo could have led to a robotics bay, led to Colossus. That's a tech that could help him, but he's not even going that direction. He's going to try and get into a Twilight Council. Seeing as it is tanks, I think trying to get into charge first is a bit of a Hail Mary, but maybe an understandable one. Hoping that perhaps Maru over-eagerly moves out. Gets the robotics bay, then decides not to. Meant to build a Templar Archive. So he's going to try and get in a Storm. Presumably charge Storm, because he can only afford so much. So he's going to have a really big weakness to drops and multitasking, but in a straight-up fight, he might be able to punch his way through. For those asking about the Town Hall, yes, it was literally the human structure, their main building. But I believe it's actually a universal RTS thing to call the main structure. The headquarters, I guess. Town Hall is not unusual to call it. In fact, I definitely wasn't the one that created that. I heard it from another StarCraft 2 commentator, and I was like, oh yeah, that is a really easy way, instead of going Command Center, Nexus, or Hatchery. So I'm definitely not going to take credit for that one. Anyhow, just a little nice, it's like overall esports history right there. That's cool. So Warp Prism could try and get some more damage done on the SCVs, right? 4 Stalkers, 1-shot SCVs, but the Viking is still sharking around. A Raven is sharking around, and that Warp Prism is injured. So, really almost anything could kill it. Scan goes down right on top of where it needs to go. It sees the Twilight Council. It sees Templar Archives. Absolutely zero mistaking this, right? If he had only scanned the Robo, maybe would have, like, oh, is it Colossus? But it doesn't really matter what he would think. Literally, I don't think there's a scan he could have done that would have kept him at home. Colossus, he's got a Raven, he's got tanks. Colossus will be dealt with, probably. High Templars, he probably doesn't have a lot to go with the High Templars, because he's taken so much damage from the early game, so I can still push out. Dark Shrine, I got a Raven, so who cares? There's really no reason for Maru not to push out. But now he knows a little bit more of what to look for, so he's going to be pre-splitting, he's going to be looking for an interference matrix on the Warp Prism. Let's witness this battle. Storm nearly hits the Marines, but the interference matrix did come down, taking out 2 more High Templars from the equation. Nightmare moving down his own ramp into what was still multiple tank firing. Not going to look pretty. I do like Nightmare's attempt to bring this game back. I think he made the best choices possible for a man in his position, but it would have required Maru really messing up to let this game go. And that looks to be it. Just the bio left over, but the bio will be good enough. There are no more storms. Mortal juggle, respect. But that you know, it's not bringing the game back. All right. And Maru is just rallying across for the looks of things. 1 Archon is kind of difficult to deal with for a bio player. And the Immortal is still helping away against the Marauders, actually. So seriously, Nightmare is really giving it his all in one hell of a disastrous game. He's even taking a kind of hidden Nexus. He believes, man. He freaking believes. But a 2-base Terran can do a lot. Eventually, if Maru were to still be running his head into the brick wall of a 2-base Protoss, he'd regret not getting a 3rd CC, I guess. But by eventually, I mean in 4 minutes? In 7 extra battles? There's still a lot that Maru can do with his 2-base setup versus Nightmare's 2-base setup. And it looks like he's even looking for the hidden bases. So that was logical, I guess. This guy must be doing something, thinking that he can still live in this game. Storms are what Nightmare is about to have only. Like his, okay, he saves an Immortal again. Jeez Louise. Alright, this kid is really looking to live. We're getting into comical Austin Powers territory at this point. Like, why aren't you dead? Why won't you die? This Immortal, specifically. There! Finally! Finally! And another Immortal is about to be picked up and microed. One medevac, actually more than one medevac for every bio unit. Would a minefield impossible to clean up? Is the armory done? No, but it's still impossible to clean up. He just can't actually kill the damn things. EMPs are on the way, and what is this army especially weak against? That's correct, EMPs. He's trying to pop the Widow Mines and then pick up whatever units popped him with the War Prism. I mean, Nightmare is really trying, man. It's too bad he was in such a bad position, because imagine some of this micro in a much more even game. That might have been actually really cool. But that was the beginning of the game was absolutely terrible. Not much else was going to happen there. But, you know, give it up for Nightmare for showing off that micro, showing off that stubbornness. And Maru is like, okay, finally taking the game 1 victory. Let's see what happens in game 2. Game number 2 is going to be on Royal Blood. And we have another SCV being sent out. It worked pretty well last time, guys. I think he'd do it again. In the top right, it is Maru. In the bottom left, it is Nightmare. Nightmare coming in as the overwhelming underdog. I'm not sure he's ever beaten Maru, actually. Could look it up. But I'm on a 1 PC setup, so I will not. I'm just going to go ahead and assume. He's never beaten Maru. Nightmare is still probably the most famous, well, for nerds like me, I suppose, for his DT shenanigans versus Gumiho and Cactus Valley. I'm never going to forget that very specific game. Because then I sound like I'm just like a memory log. When I'm not, I just, for some reason, really remember that game. Where Nightmare, before DT Blink was actually a thing, used it in its meme potential. When everyone laughed at it and said, like, no, it's so stupid, like, that's not gonna work. And then he used it to take a game off of Gumi. I don't even think he won the series. But he has had some good runs. Again, that Atlanta lower bracket run. It's pretty cool. He's surprised. He's got some upsets in some series where people underestimate Nightmare, and then a little surprised by him playing some actually pretty standard Protoss just really well. It's not that he is still, I would say, a particularly innovative player. He's not coming out with the cheesiest of strats all that much, about as much as I'd expect from a Protoss player not named Showtime. So, yeah. He does have his moments, but Maru has even better moments. And the matchup right now does seem to be a struggle for Protoss players. I think we can all admit that. 16-1 for games. Nice. Nice. So Nightmare is Engineer May blocked in the natural, takes the 3rd, and then Maru's like, I'm just gonna take the bunker over here then. And what are you going to do as the Protoss player? Cancel 2 Nexus? That's 200 minerals down the drain. That's half a Nexus down the drain. The Zealot has to run so far away to try and stall this bunker out, which apparently it's going to be effective. I'm actually a little surprised Maru gave up on that as fast as he did. I thought for sure he was going to be an obnoxious little brat and pull the SCV this way. Or not pull it, but try to micro it, get lucky with the AI. But no, he is more than willing to just be like, okay, man, whatever. You can have that base. You can have it. He still, at the end of the day, does offset Nightmare more than he gets offset, canceling the Jiren Bay and canceling the bunker. His 3rd base is just ultimately awkward, but it is practiced. So there is that. Nightmare might have had to deal with this a decent amount of times, as Protoss players have for the last 5 years, I want to say. It's come and gone, the NJ Bay block popularity. So typically what a Protoss player would do would follow up with the Stargate, because that gives you that excellent defense and harassment and scouting. And the popular follow-up of the Terran player was oftentimes Hellions. Not in this case, though. And that has changed over the last few years. So it's no longer just, oh, okay, bases to be taken at the 3rd, Stargate versus Hellions, yada, yada, yada. It has changed into more kind of do what you want. Protoss players got more comfortable defending their base, as is. Looks like with the 2 Reapers and a Hellion, they managed to kill a Stalker before going down. So that's still pretty impressive for Maru, who's defending his natural with the single Widow Mine. Nightmare, I think, would have heard that or seen that for a hot second, so should know that Widow Mine drop would be on the way. Is going to go ahead and go into the Twilight Council. The Twilight Council isn't bad, as I've been trying to explain. Like, this is an okay option after getting Engineering Bay blocked. But do keep in mind that the Twilight Council has no scouting capabilities. And that means you are a bit of a gambler when you do this. If you go for 4 gateways and you go for your own 4-gate attack off of this, well, assuming they don't do anything really weird early on, like a 1-base tank push, you'll probably be the aggressor. If they go into a 2-gateway, 3rd Nexus off of Blink, I mean, they're really not going to know what Maru's sitting up with. So right now, Nightmare is adding on 2 additional gateways, so he's splitting the difference. Like, it's right in the middle. 3-gateway Blink. Now, he could technically try and be a little aggressive with this, but obviously there's no Robo. So, how aggressive can you really be? Okay, wouldn't mind a little bit down. And that was... Okay, yeah. It's the only one that dropped. We're good. And the 3-gate can be used offensively, which is probably more so what he's thinking. But the problem is then again, he doesn't know how much Maru is getting away with back on his side of the map. So Nightmare could be playing this defensive game and letting Maru do his thing, which also doesn't sound very neat. But he's not potentially all-inning with a 4-gate into a guy who has plenty of tanks and plenty of SimCity. He's not 2-gate 3rd Nexusing into a guy who's about to tank push him. He's right in the middle. And he's going to add a Twilight. He's going to add a Dark Shrine. Of course he is. Which sounds like, you know, a safe place. And it is safe. It just isn't... It isn't very extreme. And probably when you're the underdog, you probably want to go to extremes. Playing a safe game against the guy who is expected to win all the tournaments this year, you better also be a guy who's expected to win all the tournaments this year. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't feel too good for Nightmare, and not much has really happened. You know, we haven't had any huge battles or huge Wood-O-Mine shots to kill 15 probes. It's just that we have to accept that Maru is heavily favored. So Nightmare needs to do something risky. And the riskiest thing he's doing right now is a Dark Shrine, which I would say is not really risky against Terrans, especially Korean Terrans. They do seem to get Ravens no matter what the heck they're up against. So there'll be detection. There's a missile turret coming down. Now Maru, if we're talking about the other side of things, right, I'm saying that Nightmare probably has to be more extreme to actually win this series. Maru is in the position to say, I'll just go ahead and play super, like, regular and super defensive even, and I'll still win. Even if you had 4 Nexus, and I'm still turtling up at home, I think I'll still win. And he'd be right about that. But he's not turtling. He is moving out. Stim is done. Combat Shield is on the way. +1 as well. And Nightmare is not quite ready to go. He did not build up a lot from his gateways that he did create. He was trying to add on all this technology. He was trying to fit in all of these things before Maru came across the map. And basically none of them are done. And Dark Templars do form an Archon, so at least that is done, I suppose. But 1 Archon isn't going to save the day. Shield Battery Overcharge is available. The nice Interference Matrix. Anything psionic, right? So the Archon is not helping currently. And the Shield Battery Overcharge is keeping everything alive, but it's also going to dissipate, right? So Maru's just waiting that out. His tank's still firing away. His Wood-O-Mine still going to help as he retreats. He actually retreated into some Stalkers. That's why he took an extra second. Oh, my God. And he did almost lose his medevac. Oh, he does! Oh, okay. Nicely done, Nightmare. That was a pretty clutch blink forward, not going to lie. Keeps his Archon alive during all that as well. And Maru is sent back home. And Nightmare comes out of that with 3 bases, 57 probes. Not a whole lot of, like, very dependable armor units quite yet, but he does have +1 armor finishing. He does have the DTs at least present in Maru's mine, so Maru's always going to have to keep that bunker up and a missile turret, you know, ready. Always have to make sure his Raven is ready to go, or he has a scan available. And the Colossus are going to be on the way. Nightmare is trying to get up to 2 Robos and a Robotics Bay. So if he can get to 2 Robo units, I think he'll also survive the next phase of this game. But that is a big if. The Robo's still not done. Maru's already doing a second push. He still has the Raven. Everything's repaired up. Everything's healed up. And those charge lots, they're kind of bare, aren't they? They got the armor, but they have nothing else to help them. There's no force field to lock in the bio. There's no Stalkers to blink aggressively to kill those last few Marauders that are on 2 health. And now the Archon! Once again, Nightmare being able to save some units here. He had a DT or something into the natural, by the way, so Maru did take 4 SCDs worth of damage. She is pretty committed to 2 bases. 3rd CC is only just now finishing, but it is finishing, so he's not all in here. And once again, Nightmare has no shield body overcharge to work with. He actually popped at a really weird time and is going to regret that. He's going to try and take the engagements, but the Widow Mine field is still available. Second Widow Mine didn't get anything, actually, so that wasn't too great. But more Medivacs are coming forward, more Widow Mines, more energy on the Raven. The Ghosts are on the way. The +1 armor being done now gives Maru an advantage. And whenever the force fields whiff, whenever they miss, well, that just means the Zealots actually get worse. So the force fields really have to be very good. That's something that Nightmare can't quite get to happen. Finally, Colossus pops out. Second one's only just now on the way. One Colossus will not burn through all these Marauders, and the Widow Mine just got some great hits on the Zealots, which are not easy for Nightmare to replace. 3-base Protoss is solid, it's foundational, but it's not like you can just spam a billion Zealots while also getting your upgrades, also getting your Colossus. So losing half your Zealots in a push that ends up getting nothing in return, that's not good. Shockingly, that's not good. Maru may be even a little surprised by how much Nightmare has managed to accumulate. Actually scans the 4th base, perhaps also just seeing if there was a vulnerable building 4th base from the take. There is not, so he's going to focus in once again on the main push. Marauders take care of that Colossus. Extended Thermal Lance not actually done, only halfway, so second Colossus also very vulnerable, and there it is with the interference missiles as well. It no longer drips forward is the good news, so Nightmare might be able to save that, but the rest of the army is gone. The Colossus is the last thing standing, and while it might actually get a couple of shots in, how long is it really going to last? The Marauders getting awfully choked in. Medivacs are getting a little dry, but that one Colossus has to kill the entire Terran army. The shield body overcharge once again. God, I wish these games were so much closer, you know? Like, Nightmare is getting some really cool micro moments, but everything else about the game is not delivering. So, unfortunately, that is still game. That is still game. Maru is going to 2-0 Nightmare. Which is the expected result. Dodges the Disruptor shot. That would have been cool. But it's the expected result. Nightmare really did stand up stronger than you would expect. But once again, Nightmare just doesn't want to admit defeat. Like that, 2 Disruptors in a dream. Dream on, Nightmare. Dream on. Nope. Just kidding. Nope. Just kidding. GG. So Maru move into the winners match against TBD. And that's the next match we're going into to determine who Maru faces and who Nightmare faces.